Hello. Good morning. Afternoon, almost. Yeah. So I'm Tom Snyder. I'm an associate professor of economics. I've been here for 8 years. So I'm also in College of Business with Mitch Mitchell and Jeremy Horpedal. And I teach all kinds of classes, but in my principles classes, I like to bring up the concept or the idea of sweatshops. And one reason is that students, they tend to remember this. So if you talk about economic concepts and you're always talking about cheeseburgers and pizzas and so forth, and then you're like, oh, you remember that when I talk about cheeseburgers and pizzas? No, they won't remember any of that, right? But I talk to my students, and if you bring up sweatshops, they do remember what went on, what that conversation was about. I don't know why. Maybe it's because they come in with some preconceived notion about it, and then when they learn the economic concept, it's something kind of different, so interesting, right? So I think it's a cool subject you could talk about, whether you're talking to second graders, third graders, 11th graders, or college freshmen or seniors. Right? Actually, when, I should have got my hair cut, but I usually go get my hair cut, and I don't like to talk, probably in general, but get my hair cut because when you do, I don't know, the hair kind of go in my mouth, so. But of course, the person cutting my hair wants to always talk about something, right? It's kind of customer service. So I just try and give very short, I should be mature and say, I don't really want to talk because I don't like hair in my mouth, but I don't do that. So I'm very immature, so I just give like a very one-word answer kind of thing. And so they'll normally cut, and they'll say, so what do you do? And I'll say, teach. And I say, where do you teach? College. And then, what do you teach in college? And hopefully it would just stop. I should just say nothing, and then, all right. But what do you teach? And I'll say economics. And then almost every one of them has taken an econ class somewhere, not in maybe high school, but in college, and they're all like, oh man, I remember that class. Oh my goodness. None of them had a good experience. They all had very, very bad experiences. Right? And I wondered, have you taken me, by the way? But I don't know who I think our professors are very good, but and I don't know the reason for that, but I think when you get into some interesting topics like sweatshops, they do remember that. I think they get excited about that kind of thing, and they get more interested in it, and they remember the concept. So but we could always talk about cheeseburgers and pizzas, but a little more.
I have a question.
Sure.
Why do you have the disclaimer on the first slide?
Which slide? Oh, here? Over here?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I should note that I'm not reinventing the wheel on most of these examples. Dr. Ben Powell gives a great sweatshop presentation. You can YouTube that, by the way. And so all the materials. Over this disclaimer. Okay, this one. I have a lot of disclaimers going on. Yeah, so I'm speaking for me, and my views may not reflect those of UC. It's just a typical disclaimer. Right?
Probably should have on the other one too.
Why we have it, I don't know. Legally, maybe we should have it.
Because our administration wants it.
Yeah. So can't hold them accountable for what I say. Go and hold me accountable, if that makes sense. Right? When I teach principles of micro or macro, almost any class, one of the first things I talk about is trade-offs. Right? Because there's trade-offs in everything we do. Right? Maybe besides breathing air, almost everything you do is a trade-off. So economist Thomas Sowell, which, by the way, I'd advise YouTube him and read. He's great. If you YouTube him, you'll find this quote somewhere. He says, there are no solutions, only trade-offs. And if you teach like math, like someone taught math here, or science, maybe there's some solutions in math. But we're talking about economic policy and economics. Yeah, there's basically just trade-offs in life, right? And so if you're teaching the second grader, you could easily do this. Hey, we can spend the day at the zoo, or we can spend the day at the Buffalo River. It's a nice day. Which one? If we go to Buffalo River, that means you can't go to the zoo. That's the trade-off. But in my class, typically, if you're here, that means you gave up something, right? So I'll ask someone, what would you have been doing if you weren't here? So what would you be doing? Which, maybe more specifically, which Netflix show would you been watching if you were here? If you weren't here, school check-in, something else, right? Yeah, and we'll call that an opportunity cost, but it's a trade-off. Right? And when you think about economics, almost everything's a trade-off because you can't get everything we want. That's called scarcity, right? We have a lot of wants, can't get all that, right? Just not possible. We have to make choices in life, and sweatshops is a good way to present this material. And it's funny because no one really debates in economics whether there's trade-offs, right? There's not really much of a debate, or there's opportunity cost or whatever. Or whether if the price goes up, we buy less of it. People buy less of it. These are not real debates, but it seems though that whenever there's a controversial topic, people want to ignore the fact that economic principles hold, right? They just want to pretend like there's no. They want to maybe envision a reality that doesn't exist. So maybe you shouldn't quote Mike Tyson, but I don't know. Tyson said that everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. I would say a quote, not as good, but by me, similarly, everyone believes in economic principles. You could teach it very easily, I think, using hamburgers, hot dogs, whatever. But they don't want to believe it when there's harsh realities, right? You just want to almost assume that, why don't we just pay the living wage and do, there should be free everything, right? No, there's nothing hardly free besides maybe the air you breathe. Everything is a trade-off, right? So economic principles hold, right? Whether you like it or not. And in the sweatshop case, that's one way of kind of presenting that. All right, so a few key terms. Now, if you look at the module, they have a bunch of frameworks and that kind of thing, and I'm not going to hit all those, but if there's a couple you want to hit or some that we may not address, I could always help you out in getting some material for that. Some key terms that you can go over when you talk about sweatshops. Of course, scarcity. We want a lot of things. We want them all to be rich, these workers and all that, but can't get everything that we want. Opportunity costs. These workers don't always have great options, right? Their opportunity cost, what's the opportunity cost? Right, the highest valued alternative that you give up to do something. So if you really wanted to watch, this Netflix series, you had to give that up to go here, right? Even so, more famous quote in economics is there's no such thing as a free lunch, right? So you have kind of a free lunch coming up, right? But it's not really free, is it? I mean, you had to come here. You could have been doing something else. You could have ate somewhere else. So there's always opportunity costs. Even if you don't see explicit, dollar costs, there's always some sort of cost. There's an opportunity cost. And when you think about the sweatshop workers, we'll talk much more about, they don't have always great alternatives. Their opportunity costs may be very low. You're not going to, maybe get LeBron James to make a garment, right? He's be giving up a lot, right? But these folks may not have great alternatives. We'll also talk about productivity. And I think for your students, and Dr. Harper already defined productivity, so I need to define that. But how much someone can produce in an hour a day or whatever, that's going to help explain their situation in the sweatshops, right? That's one key factor, right? And we're thinking about what's going on in sweatshops. And incentives, you think about incentives for the sweatshop worker. We can think about incentives for the people who protest sweatshops. So these are key terms you can bring up when you're thinking about sweatshops. You could probably bring in other terms as well. Right? Kind of depends on where you're at and when you're teaching economics, but sweatshops can be used for many things. All right. One thing we can say is that a very bad option, it's a very bad option, but it's better than a very, very bad option. It's better than very, 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 very bad. I was given this sort of a mini talk like this, I guess a month or so ago, and someone was very adamant, was like, are you telling me that they should have, that they're choosing this, bad option because their other options are even worse? I was like, yeah, that's what I'm telling you, right? I'm sorry, right? But that's the way it works. And, so you can easily relate this to, it could be a first grader, 10th grader. These concepts are very easy to learn, right? So maybe for even a small kid, do this or you do that. I know you don't like that, but you really don't like that, right? A very bad option is better than a very, very bad option. Some objectives. Now you can, of course, augment these depending on the framework. Hopefully the students, when you talk about sweatshops, the ones who, they get some kind of sense of how these wages are really determined. Right? And, but also, even maybe as important, they can think about, well, okay, if we were to come in and try to fix this issue, well, at what cost? What are the consequences of that? And you could use sweatshops to illustrate that point. And for teaching more of a macro sense, you can get students thinking about, well, how does economic development really occur? And you could use sweatshops to say, you know what? About all these developed countries have gone through this stage of sweatshops, right? And it's not always easy to just take the rungs out of the ladder and just jump up and be developed, right? We'll talk more about that too. All right, so do you know what sweatshops are? What are sweatshops?
Where the people don't get paid top wage.
Yeah, you don't get very, very low pay, right?
Usually poor working conditions.
Working conditions probably not very good, right?
We had one when Tony Alamo was making those sequin denim jackets probably way before you were born.
Yeah. I'm not as old as Jeremy, so I can't say. I'm not an old timer right now. Almost, actually. But, yeah, it comes up in the news. Now, if you ever read a news article, I had a couple of links in news articles, they usually don't say anything good about it, right? It's, not saying it's good, but yeah, poor working conditions, low pay, right? We had long hours, health and safety concerns, right? These are not places we want to work at for sure, right? Sounds like education. No, I'm just kidding. K through 12, no. But it's not slavery. That's a whole different thing. They're not forced to work there. They maybe do things they don't like to do, but it is voluntary. So, talking about places where that's voluntary. So they are choosing to go there. Not desirable in our perspective, but for them, they're choosing to go there. Are they choosing to go there because it's their worst option? Maybe their best option that they have, right? So maybe a choice that we like, it's harsh reality, but it's not forced labor. They will say, slave wage, all that kind of, but no, they're choosing to go there, right? I think we kind of get that idea. But I think if you're teaching, of course, very young people, they may not know exactly what sweatshops are, but there's not like an actual real clear definition. I don't know if they're, but we get kind of look at it and say, that looks like a sweatshop. People are not getting paid very much. Working conditions are tough. Right. All right. I don't know if you can read this small print, but what you see is in the small print, very small numbers in terms of dollars per month or per day, per year. So, for example, Bangladesh. I can't even read it. Okay. This is 2010, for example. This is Dr. Ben Powell. It's a survey of sweatshops. 2010. The wage in this sweatshop was about $23.52 per month, right? And there are some like 10 cents per hour, 25 cents per hour, that kind of thing, right? About $2.46 per day for Nike in Indonesia, late 90s. So these are, from our perspective, that don't seem very much at all, right? So some of these folks are making less maybe in a month than maybe I'm making an hour or something, right? So very low, right? Extremely low wages.
Is it fair to just say the dollars, or should we look at purchasing parity and saying how much does it buy?
You can adjust that. So you can adjust for purchasing power parity. And I don't think these were, but you can adjust it, and they will buy. So adjusting in most of these places means you'll buy a little bit more than you typically. So 10 cents may get you maybe, 20 cents or more than if you didn't adjust for it, right? So they can buy a little more than maybe in most places than we can, given the dollar. So the dollar may go further there, but it's still pretty low, right? So it's still maybe instead of 20 cents, they're making 50 cents, but it's still pretty low. All right, so what usually they're going to report is that, they look at these people. They have very, very low wages. And bad working conditions, and something may happen. Maybe the roof collapses, or something, a fire happens, or something occurs, and then what you'll see. Why I wanted to pull it up, but you'll see people who are making an outrage about it. Of course, these are things that are tough, but are unions, and usually there's even an international union. One's called, I think, like the Asian International minimum wage or floor union or something like that, right? And so the unions would be protesting. Right? By the way, this is something you ask your students. Why would a labor union, I mean, workers in the U.S. getting together, forming a union, right, acting as one, why would they protest against low wages in other countries, say in Bangladesh? Why do workers here want people in Bangladesh to get a higher wage?
You have to compete against them in terms of the sales.
Right, exactly. It's not out of the heart. It's not as if, oh, I really care about those maybe they do, but I really care about those Bangladesh workers. They're more like, I don't want them making the stuff we want to make it, right? It's competition, right? Of course. So, but they can align with the do-gooders and say they're trying to help the Bangladesh workers. Right? All right, so what really determines the wage? It depends on which maybe grade level you're looking at. You could bring out supply and demand if you're already doing that, right? Supply and demand labor. But you can think about productivity and the amount that someone's producing is going to have a key impact on the wage that you get, right? Assuming there's some alternative employers out there, right? And we have an exercise at the end that we'll demonstrate that, but what do kids know? They know LeBron James. If LeBron James is bringing in, say, $30 million of revenue to whichever team he's at, he's a free agent, let's suppose, $30 million of revenue, and some team offers them only $10 million, what would another team do? Like, offer me $11 million, right, or $12 million, or $15 million. Get bid up, right, get close to $30 million. The more productive you are, the higher wage you can demand. Right? Now, a lot of these workers don't have a lot of human capital, a lot of experience, right? A lot of education, and they also may not have the right, the tools that we are accustomed to, right? The machines or technology that we're accustomed to, and they may not be able to produce as much as we can, right? That may be a key explanation to why they do not get paid a very high wage, right? And we'll do an assignment later on for that. However, we say they get paid low wages, and in our standards they get paid very low wages, right? But let's look at really how much they get paid compared to what they could have got, right? So this is a little bit old, but this is, say, Nike or whatever, right? Some multinational company, right? Has their affiliate, say in India or Bangladesh or whatever, making the phone or the shoes or whatever, right? And how much do they pay? So this is a couple decades ago, but say this is hasn't changed. The numbers have changed, but the ratio hasn't changed much. Look at the low income here. This is in thousands of dollars, right? Say in a year. So Nike or whoever would typically pay, say, $3,400 a year in wage in those low income countries. $3,400 per year, that's not high for us. It seems, we wouldn't agree to it. But if you look at their alternative, in the low-income countries, their domestic manufacturing wage, maybe what they could have got, is about half that, $1,700. Right? So, although they're getting paid a low wage, in our standards, what they're getting paid is typically twice as much as their alternative, right? On average, right? Getting paid usually by these multinationals. They're usually getting paid twice as much than their alternative. Right? So that's something to think about too, about incentives. What alternatives do these workers have? Right? We won't talk about the high income. Who cares about them? All right, so we mentioned unions, right? Celebrities, you see Matt Damon or whatever, like protest workshops. Why do celebrities protest workshops?
Because it makes them seem sensitive.
Seems about right. Yeah, I don't know. That could be the answer,
It's
right?
free advertising, right?
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, I mean,
It makes them seem smart.
yeah, you're a good person, right? Now, if you're a celebrity and you're like, I love sweatshops, probably you're not gonna. Your wage will go down. Yeah, for whatever reason, I don't know what's inside their head, but that's probably the reason. Activists, maybe they're getting paid by the unions or whatever, right? They maybe they have an interest in this, right? Yeah, so unions, they don't want competition for their jobs, right? But it may, and this may go for even within the U.S. Oh, they should have a high minimum wage, even though you say union workers may get much higher than minimum wage. Why do they care about minimum wage? Well, maybe they want less competition, or maybe they have a contract tied to minimum wage. Right? Whoops. All right. There's a famous economist called Milton Friedman. His name is Milton Friedman. Maybe you know him. I would advise you YouTube him. Like, go to YouTube, Milton Friedman. Nobel Prize winner. He's actually talking about the minimum wage in this quote. He says that whenever you have bad programs, like in his view, minimum wage, or he'd probably agree with me, say a bad program would be try to ban or highly regulate sweatshops. Whenever you have a bad program, he says what you usually have is an unholy coalition of do-gooders and special interests. So as the economist Milton Friedman said, we have the special interests, which may be like the unions who don't, they want to have their job security. They don't want to be outsourced. They would love to somehow regulate or ban sweatshops in some way. But you also have the do-gooders, the Matt Damons, right? Matt Damon may be great, but other celebrities, right? Who say, other folks, sweatshops they seem bad, and we shouldn't have them, right? The do-gooders maybe have no special interest, right? Besides making themselves feel good. They can easily align and create a program that Milton Friedman would call a bad program, right? So I think he was talking about minimum wage here, but a lot of times the trade unions, right, or labor unions will try to enact legislation to create a higher wage for those sweatshop workers in other countries. Right? They have a special interest, and the do-gooders can align with them. Right? I think even Adam Smith from way back said, watch out for those do-gooders in some sort of way. Right? Watch out for those people trying to help you out. Right? All right, so here's kind of a key, and this is maybe the more challenging part of trying to explain to students why there are costs or consequences to when you try to help these sweatshop workers to some sort of regulation or price. Right? So you could do some exercise with them. Right? So they get an understanding of what's going on. Right? All right, so suppose that I'm a sweatshop worker. I'm a good one. I suppose that if I work really hard, I'll bring in $5 of revenue per hour. Let's do that because I have 5 fingers. $5 of revenue per hour if I work real hard. Right? Suppose y'all are employers. Right? What's the most you would possibly be willing to pay me? You can't run losses. You'll go out of business. What's the most you could possibly pay me if I'm bringing in $5 of revenue per hour?
$5 in profit per hour.
Yeah, just revenue. Bringing in. I'm making something that's worth $5 now, right? Boom. Right, what's the most you want to pay me if I'm bringing you? I'm the employee. You're the employer, right? Forget other costs and all that. If I'm bringing in $5 to you, what's the most you want to pay me? The maximum. $5, right? That's totally max, right? You can't make a loss, And you can say, oh, if you want some profit, come forward. But let's say $5. Make it real easy. I'm coming to you. I'm a hard worker. I'm a great sweatshop worker. I work very hard, tough conditions. I bring in $5. Suppose you're a very nice employer in the sense, you you pay me my full $5, right? You don't take profit on me. You just pay full $5. Right? That's the maximum. Does that make sense? Right? So you can tell students, okay, but you know what? Suppose that the International Trade Union or the do-gooders convince the government to give me a break. You know, I work all day for these. I mean, I work hardly any breaks. I just work real hard to bring in that $5. They say, you know what? Sweatshop Tom needs a break, right? So cut some hours back, right? He needs more breaks, so I get more breaks. But that means I don't work as much. I can't produce quite as much. So given my breaks, suppose I work hard, but I have breaks, I only bring in $4 of revenue to you. I was bringing in 5, but now I take some breaks, right? So I'm only bringing in 4. What's the most you'd be willing to pay me? $4. So thank you for that break, but now you're paying me a lower wage, right? Okay, so my wage was 5, but now it's 4, but I have breaks. Am I better off? I don't know. I have breaks, but I'm getting less. Suppose that I don't really have health care, right? Because I'm sick, right? Sick of working so hard. So what if I got maybe the government or whatever to say, the mandate that you pay also for my health care, right? Now I'm bringing in $4 of revenue to you. Say that on average to make it math real easy. Per hour, if you pay my health care, health insurance, I'll say, it'll cost you about $1 an hour, right? So I'm bringing in $4 to you.
But you have to spend the dollar.
I have to spend $1 on my health care. What's the highest wage you'd be willing to pay me? $3. Okay, wait a minute. So give me some breaks. Give me health care. Cost me a couple dollars. Now I want, okay. You know what? I'm sweating. It's a sweatshop. It's very hot, right? Not very good working conditions. What if you get some air conditioning in here, right? And make it a better environment for me to work, right? So I was bringing in 5, but I want to bring in 4. Got to take breaks. Got to pay health care, right? Suppose make it math real easy, right? The cost of the air conditioner, all that, say per hour I work, is about $1, right? Right. So I was bringing in 5, and I take breaks. I'm only bringing in $4 to you. You got to pay $1 health care. You got to pay $1, for a better environment so I work in. How many dollars left do you have to pay me in wage? $2. I don't know. Am I better off? I don't know. It depends on how much I value the health care, how much I value the work. So only economists would write a survey like this, right? Which is a great survey, right? Are you willing to work for lower pay, like on 5, 4, 3, 2, right? If, reduce your hours, right? Provide health care, that kind of thing, right? Now, if you just had a survey, would you like health insurance? Yes, right? Would you like breaks? Sure, right? Would you like AC? Yes, of course. But what if, in doing so, your wages went from 5 to 4 to 3 to 2, right? I don't know about that, right? Maybe some people say it's worth it. So this is a question, right? Would you be willing to pay or get a lower pay if we improved your environment, give you health care, that kind of thing, right? So I think a student can get that pretty easily, right? This is a survey. And usually the answer is no. Just give me the money, right? Give me the wage. And if I want to use it to... they're very poor, right? Maybe they're more willing to suffer through some tough conditions to get an extra $1 or $2, right? We won't be that. We probably wouldn't be like, you know what? If you gave me a choice, you can make, $20 an hour with the AC, or, $18 an hour, or $22 an hour, with no AC. I'll take the AC, right? But for them, they get very low wage. They're using up, not like big savers here, right? Wage is very important, right? So they may take the wage, right? Now, when you come in to try to help them by implementing some regulations, or say they must provide health care and that kind of thing, you also could effectively be lowering their wage. So see, the answer is no. Well, vacation, maybe some people say yes. You know what? I love the vacation if that's possible, right? But that's actually remarkable, right? And this is really a great survey because, I mean, I think only probably an economist would write this. If you didn't write this, right, or you want to work for a lower pay, you just said, would you like more bathroom breaks? Well, okay, yes, and everything, right? But the fact that this here, you explain it to them, that it may be costly, well, then no, right? Does that make sense?
The last question is interesting.
Yeah, I don't know exactly how that was worded to them, but I mean, it's kind of odd. So I don't know, and I don't know the prevalence of sexual harassment there, and I don't know, what steps they can do, what training or whatever human resource employee or whatever they can do to reduce the risk of it. But I guess that was not a concern enough for them to anyone to say, oh yes, I need lower pay so we can help fix this problem, right? No, I mean, look at different alternative or the opportunity cost, we call it, right? I mean, yeah, those workers that are taking the low wage, maybe they don't have alternatives that we have, right? Well, you know what? I'll do something else. I could do something else, right? But if we couldn't do something else, maybe we want to accept that, yeah. And like with the sweatshop workers, maybe they don't have great alternatives, and that's why they want to work these jobs, right? But yeah, so this concept here, I mean, teaching the students, you may have to really, I did the 5 thing, right? I don't know, but maybe that'll work. Because it's very tempting, right, to just assume that there's no consequences or trade-offs to things and say, yeah, we should, what if, though? We did a few of these things, right? So we cut my hours back. We gave me health insurance, and then we, got better working conditions, and you only have $2 left to pay me and make not a loss. And then the union comes in and say, $2 is not a living wage. What if we impose a $5 per hour living wage? What will happen to me? I'm out. Yeah, right. As a worker, I'm no longer employable. Right. Incentives, of course, you could apply everywhere too. In that case, I think there's an old saying, like in Russia, right? We pretend to work and y'all pretend to pay us. That system doesn't work out very well, right? I don't know. But suppose that we have some do-gooders, and also if you really, if you're teaching maybe the good high school students who are really paying attention and really want to know what's going on, and the Child Labor Deterrence Act, I forget which year in the 90s, but it was kind of effective even though beforehand. People who were sponsoring that may have got some funding from unions, right? Maybe had an incentive to treat those unions well because they donated to their campaign. But the idea was, what if we stop importing goods, in some ways punishing the other countries, stop importing goods that are made by young kids, because we want to stop, the employment of these young kids in these other countries, right? Most people will go along with that, right? Not thinking that there are some costs to that too, right? But most people go along with it. It sounds good, right? But there are trade-offs to that. One example, Bangladesh garment industry had to lay off thousands of children, right? About 50,000 according to that estimate. What did these children do, you think, that were laid off?
Or other things.
Other things, yeah.
STEM camp?
I don't know about STEM camp, but maybe, but maybe not quite as good. Right. So according to the UNICEF, some had to scavenge just to get by. Some girls resorted to prostitution. Right. So this was. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Over time, the idea is that their parents' income will go up because there will be a greater demand for labor, right?
Yeah.
But temporarily, or at least until it catches up, or they move on to another country, right? I don't know. The companies. Was there a long-term benefit?
You mean of this?
No. Yeah.
Well, there's no measurement. It depends how you define benefit. But I can't see why that. It'd be more beneficial to be doing this, right, instead of working at the.
Of course
Yeah.
not.
But.
The goal is to make a greater demand for labor and raise
Right.
it.
So that's a good point. So how do we increase these folks' wages if we're in the U.S.? Would it be a policy like this, where we stop importing these goods? Or would it be the opposite? Probably maybe the opposite, right? So if you think about,
But
if
of
you,
course, we as Americans did not get that information prior to this act being passed, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Because once they see the word prostitution, then you have everybody on the bandwagon then, and then you're really talking about those endorsements from those people. Because then they're really gonna endorse it. That's just like the human trafficking deal that we have going on today, is from some of this mess that we probably created as a nation, or some of our
yeah.
legislation has created.
Yeah, as it turns out, like, we all have lives. We won't pay attention. We don't go. We watch
Because we don't get that
C-SPAN.
information.
We watch the
From
C.
China, the
Yeah.
information
No,
we
you're.
were getting, we
yeah.
never get.
Oh yeah.
The
yeah.
stuff on Latin America was unbelievable. The stuff on Latin America was unbelievable. But of course, we do not get that on our channels because
Yeah.
they don't want to pipe it in to see
Yeah,
what they're doing.
we probably wouldn't even watch it because we have so many things going on in our lives, right? We probably don't investigate which congressman or woman is doing this or that, and you kind of almost, not say you trust them, but I mean you're just, you don't have all the information, or you don't even know what to seek, right? You know what to look for, right? Are you going through every bill? Even in Arkansas, did we look through the bills? No way, right? That's kind of my job. I don't even do it, right? So, yeah.
And our economic policy is based on the standpoint of the privilege that we have as Americans. We don't realize that because we don't, when you go into other countries, we try to impose what is the standard for the Americans onto these countries with no respect of their culture, where they are economically. If we are a major economic power and now you're talking about a third world nation trying to become what you come, it's that from that point of privilege that we.
Of course, I mean, there's no doubt, right? I mean, if we look at now and then we compare our present day to their present day, and there's no comparison. Well, we think about, the U.S. has been through this process, and Great Britain's been through this process of sweatshops, right? It's not easy to just jump over these processes and become economically developed. It is faster now because of the better technology, that they don't have to reinvent the wheel and all these sort of things, right? Better health care. They can achieve things faster than we did, and not we, the Western countries did. But still, it's still a process. Yeah, we go in, and Dr. Powell does more on this, and that's a good point you made. I didn't bring up these, I didn't put in these slides, but when you look at when the U.S. came up with some of these regulations on sweatshops and so forth, in terms of breaks and health care and wage and all that, it was at a much higher income level than what these folks are at now. Right? So we have to be careful about that. You come in and you can make situation much worse.
It's a good opportunity to talk to your kids about those social goals and the different lenses that we look through. And
Sure. Because, of course, if we're born in Bangladesh, we'd be rich, right? No, I think so. Right? Yeah, it's very difficult. I mean, we all do it in our lives. There's almost no way for us to know, see a different perspective all the time. Right? Yeah, sweatshops have been around for a long time. We're not immune to it. We did that, of course. And long term, when you look at these countries, of course, we can look at our own country and Great Britain and other countries. You look at China now. If we buy these products, we do it, and demand for these products do go up, and prices go up for these products, what happens to the wage, you think? It's going to go up too, because each person bringing in more, even with the same output, they're bringing in more income. And if you're going to set up shop somewhere, you're going to bring your technology, your physical capital, right? So these folks can start accumulating capital, start moving up, and better their lives, right? And think about women and children. The women can, in many of these countries, right, quite have the freedom we have, allows them to have some independence as well, right, and accumulate some income. What's the cure for this? Well, it's economic development overall, right? This is a percentage of children aged 10 to 14 in the labor force. Hardly anyone here in the rich countries, right? Almost none. But maybe about 30% in the poorest countries. Right? And we think sweatshops in our mind, but sweatshops, that's just a small part. Where are most of these kids? Agriculture, yeah. So this is a percentage of actively employed children. Where are they at? So awesome. The blue here is agriculture, and services and manufacturing is actually the lowest. Right? So you're not going to fix things in many ways, and make things worse. But by trying to stop sweatshops, it's not as if they're going to. Oh, okay. Now I'm going to go to a great school and become, a doctor. It doesn't always work that way. Right? Maybe they go to agriculture, and they may prefer the sweatshop indoors as opposed to farming outdoors in the heat. Right? So what can we do if the students are like, oh, we should do this? If you think about it from the economic principle standpoint, we'll buy their products, increases demand, increases prices, increases wage. Right? You can only do that. We could talk all day about free trade, but with trade, right? If you start putting barriers to trade, that's not going to help these workers. Right? And a lot of times there's a lot of abuses going on in these countries in terms of corruption and overtaking someone's property or contract enforcement. Rule of law, crime may be very high. These countries typically have issues with this, right? Ease of doing business. Maybe you can't get a business going because the business that's established has connections with the government, and very hard to do that. So there's things you can do that's been shown empirically to help economic development. I haven't seen any empirical evidence to say banning sweatshops can improve the economic development of a country. Right? Any evidence that we have probably shows the opposite of that. Right? If you don't know what to do, right, maybe do no harm. Right? So you have a lot of ideas that you think can help these sweatshop workers, but you have to understand there are also some consequences to those ideas and trade-offs. Right? So I think if you demonstrate that, the students can at least allows them to critically think about the issue and at least get a step back and say, hold on, you could do harm by doing certain things, even though you think you're helping these workers. Right? Let me see if I'm done with this here. Okay. All right. So there are a couple of activities we can do. Do we have any questions in general about sweatshops? Right. A couple activities you can do. If you go to your folder that you had, there's a couple of activities. That one, we have some warm-up video, but that is not. I'm going to show that. But on number 2, right, we have a very simple activity. This is to help your students maybe just start thinking about what's going on. And we can do that. Just take a few minutes for this one, then we'll look at the other one. So suppose that we're thinking about a poor country, sweatshop workers, and if you were to take that sweatshop job away from these workers, what will they be doing? You can have your students, or we could do this now, sort of. Right? We could list a few alternative jobs, so maybe 3 to 5 alternative jobs that these sweatshop workers would have if you took the sweatshops away. Right? So you took them away. We already talked about, I guess, a couple of them already, but you took the sweatshops away. What would they be doing? Right? Yeah, I guess we already listed them, so probably don't need to. We kind of talked about them, but if you have your students listed, what do you think they would list?
Farming.
Farming, yeah. That may be the biggest one, right? Someone says scavenging, like you mentioned. Probably not a very good. You count that as a job? Maybe that's a job, right? But
Criminal activity.
Yeah, criminal activity.
Smuggling or manufacturing
Right.
items that are not.
Right. Right. And yeah, and if your student says, "Oh, they'll be a lawyer," no. So no, hold on. There's a reason they're at the sweatshop. It's because that was their best alternative, right? And so if you take that alternative away, and then you could say, okay, well, what would they be doing? Yeah, farming, or possibly scavenging or whatever.
Military?
Yeah, may I? And that depends on the country. I have no idea. Yeah,
You could go into the military to fight the sweatshops.
yeah, that'd be different. A civil war. I don't know.
The problem or against the problem.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, I don't know military requirements for these countries. If 15-year-olds can go in the military, but that may not be an option for most of them, like 13, 14-year-olds. Certainly, we see in the U.S. Some people may go to military because they have no better option. Right? That may be the case for some people in other countries. But so if you have a list there, you can go, and then along with that, I have some tables, and the tables actually they're black and white, so they're maybe not very easily seen. I put some questions on there that you can ask students, just to make sure that they comprehend the table. So we'll go through a few of these tables, and also give them kind of a sense of the situation that these workers are in, right? So it's not exactly a desirable situation from our perspective. Right? So here's some data. Right? The orange is $2 per day, right? Or less. Right? And the green is $1.25 per day, earnings. And on the y-axis, that's percentage of the population. These are going down, by the way, I should say. Probably, if I did figure right now, these numbers go down a little bit. But we can see that for Bangladesh, right, on the far left, the orange here, over 80% of the folks are living at $2 per day or less. That's way different then, right? We're fighting for higher minimum wage in Arkansas, but how much per hour? I don't know. A lot are making $1.25 per day or less, right? So you can have this figure. I think that students kind of get an idea that this is a different situation than what we live in. Again, these numbers probably should be a little lower, but still, compared to the U.S., these are tough times, right? And they've always been tough times. Now look at sweatshop earnings per day. I think these might have been PVP adjusted. Sweatshop earnings per day, adjusted for purchasing power, I think. Now think of, so if you go back to the other one, right? And instead with these countries, and you can ask them, how many of these countries, which countries is it where there's more than half the population only getting $2 per day? Right? There's a few, right? These are sweatshop earnings, and they're all making at least $2 per day here, right? Some barely, right? Some much more, right? Right. So this is earnings per day, and these for different countries. Right? And some, of course, make a lot more than others.
It's ironic that Central America.
Oh, I mean, yeah, you see some place like Haiti, right? Wow, that's just like near Florida. Florida's doing pretty good, right? That's what's going on there. And that's a whole deep discussion you could have about institutions or whatever, culture, whatever you want to have. But
over time, where clothing's made.
I'm sorry?
If you compare like where clothing's been made over time, the higher earnings, there's less and less clothing.
Oh,
made
yes,
there
yes.
Now, versus, if you look at labels now, a lot of it says Vietnam, a lot of it says, Cambodia, Laos. And you see more and more clothes made in countries with lower sweatshops versus,
And that's something you could talk about too, but
the clothing labels is, where's your clothes made?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, if
the clothing being more and more clothing being made than ones with the lower earnings.
oh yeah,
And China's also doing more trading with Rwanda, and you don't even have, those are not even measured. You got South Africa being the only African country.
yeah. That probably doesn't include all of whatever data was available. This is from Ben Powell. I don't know. I don't know the stats in Rwanda. But yeah, speaking of labels, of course, I do them in class too. I actually ask them, all right, what if we, does anyone have anything like that they're wearing that was made in the U.S., for example? Some people have nothing, right? And And how about from China? You may have a lot of stuff. But these things move. Some things from China are now being made in Vietnam, right? And it's a process, right? And you try and cut this process out, you could do more harm than good. But you see, the U.S. may be making some electronics, then it goes to Japan, and then it goes to wherever, then it goes to China, and so forth, right? There's a theory, I think, the flying geese theory, or whatever. But right, you must go through that stage. And Dr. Horpedahl talked about the, case where something that's just invented is high price, rich people get it, but then it becomes low price, and easily understood how to make it.
What's ironic is that whenever you're talking about those different countries, one of them being China, that I work on an army base at Camp Robinson, and the majority of our military gear, boots and uniforms and everything else is made in China.
It's interesting. For some reason, I'm thinking the U.S. will find a way to direct it to a U.S. corporation, but no.
It's too high. It's too high. Labor's too high.
Yeah.
But like this, because I was just there in the after the meeting with Trump and the rest of the delegates from the nations, China's president went into Abu Dhabi and then went to South Africa and again Rwanda, and they were showing those sweatshops, and then they were showing the woman who looks like the lady from Jacksonville who owns the furniture store. But she owned a garment industry. She took her garment industry out of China and put it in Rwanda, and they were just so excited to have that income. And they had a lot of male employees doing embroidery. For a man in the United States, how many of y'all can do embroidery? So there you go. There's your answer. So they're willing to take a job regardless of what is over here. And you can look at the people too that are doing roofing. Look at those people who are doing roofing are the ones that are from South America. It's the Guatemalans, it's the Hondurans, it's the people that are coming in from Mexico. They are the ones who are doing that type of labor. You take any of us, or any of our relatives that would not do. Exactly, especially in Arkansas.
Holy
But
crap,
don't do it in
you
China,
might
you
think
can do
roofing
stuff
in
like that.
Arkansas.
But would you do roofing in Arkansas for $50 an hour and the same benefits you have now?
No. I know full well how hard it is to do roofing. Those people are really motivated to send money home to their families.
Exactly. And
I
they're
am
ready
thankful
to
I don't do roofing in Arkansas.
Well, it's interesting. I was in Rwanda last year, speaking of Rwanda, and the kids don't really know. I wish we could take all our kids we teach and take them over to a third world country and see how you guys are made over here, man.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
But
They actually go to Rwanda,
it's
actually.
It's so awesome, though. People are they're turning the whole economy around.
Yeah.
The fact that they're working, they want to work, they're productive. And, America, all they think about is Hotel Rwanda. They don't think about it. This thing is completely turned around. It's the second safest country in Africa now. Yeah. And China is over there now investing in Rwanda, which America should be doing it. Right. And we just, until you know your environment, until you know what's going on, and being over in that situation, you're just talking. But China's investing in the next 20 years. They're going to build that country up. And now their people are investing. Now they don't have investment dollars. Instead of coming to America, they're going to be in Rwanda, building up Rwanda. So our products, and he's doing this tariff now, which is kind of scary because all those billions of people in China, if they start buying Rwanda, it's going to bring their development up. And America's going to be less and less. We don't make nothing anymore. And it's just really scary. Yeah. Are we gonna slide down in that second world country instead of a first world country? So it's really scary, the economics.
Yeah, I didn't mention tariffs, but if we did a poll of economists and say who's in favor of tariffs, no one would raise their hand probably. No one would do it, right? Hardly anyone. One person confused and they do it, but so I don't want to get into that. It's not really a debate intellectually. But speaking of why are some countries richer than others? Dr. Mavuto Kalulu will probably answer that way better than I can. Looking at the African countries and why some African countries are doing better than others. But I'll kind of stay on topic of sweatshops, I guess. But yeah, so you think about economic freedom in general and property rights and those sort of things. Looking at some of the earnings, so when you see those low numbers earlier for the sweatshop earnings, still, a lot of these countries, this is the percentage of the average income So not even like manufacturing wages, just the average in general. And there's some rich people in some of these countries, obviously, average income, right? Still, these sweatshop earnings in many cases are more than 100%, right? So some are actually getting paid more than average. Right? Now they're almost all they're getting paid better than their alternative, but when you look at even the average earnings, so the percentage of average earnings here, these sweatshops. Now they have different, 40, 50, 60, some of these may be the same because they're just maybe salary in some way, but say in Haiti, if you're working 50 hours in the sweatshop, you're making double the average wage. Right? So that's, take these opportunities away, obviously, make them worse off. You can always do, you mentioned people like going to these different places. You can always look at, if you can't trust the numbers, you can look at where people actually go to, right? When you open the sweatshops, people wanting to work there, right? Other people running away. People forget in the U.S. too. When people complain about Walmart, they open up and everyone try to get a job there. But,
Well, even too, I've noticed that too on cruise ships. Like some of the cruise ships go to get their employees, they don't go for the Americans. They go for these people coming right here. And they are working the crap out of those people because every time you leave your room, they've come back in and it's totally redone and remade. And again, the American labor force is not going to be worked that hard like they do on a cruise ship. And looking at these countries, a lot of these countries have ports, and so that's where they're getting their employees to work those American cruise ships.
now, if you try to improve those workers' conditions and say, oh, you're only making, I have no idea their wage on cruise ships, only making whatever, $100 per trip, but you should make what the Americans you should be paid $500 per trip. Well, then the Americans might take the jobs, right? You may then take those jobs away. It's very difficult, right, to help people without trade-offs sometimes, right? So you see them working hard, and some things maybe you can do if there's actual injustices, right, going on, theft or contracts not being enforced and those sort of things. But to have regulation or increases in mandated wages without trade-offs, that'd be quite rare. Let me do one other assignment. We have time? Let me see. Right. So one other assignment. We can do it very quickly. And so if you look at the back, so this is page 28, you have this in your folder. The back, a wage determination exercise. Okay. This will help the students, I think, help them think a little more about how these wages are actually so low and how they're determined to begin with. Right? All right, so what you can do is have a student. We'll pick a student. I know, Miss Vicky over here. I'm sorry, but you only create $2 per day, right? According to the assignment. Right. You get only $2 per day. So Miss Vicky only creates $2 of value per day, right? Of course, you could change the numbers, make it $10 or whatever. $2 per day. And suppose that Miss Vicky could maybe scavenge around and get 20 cents per day. She had no job, she could maybe get 20 cents per day. If she worked really hard, she could produce $2 per day. Y'all are the potential employers. Suppose you know that she could probably get 20 cents out of scavenging, but knowing that she is only bringing in $2 per day, you're the employer, how much would you be willing to pay? Like, suppose you offer her, you can negotiate if you want, right? You offer her some amount. What would you offer? So actually, if you don't mind, maybe write down somewhere. You have a note card if you want to write down on the actual sheet. You can write down how much you want to offer Vicky. She brings in $2 per day. She could get 20 cents if she had to, right? So you offer her 10 cents, she ain't going to work for you, right? You're not going to offer more than $2. Punish your students that say more than $2. They know can't make losses here. You run out, go out of business. You're not going to pay her more than $2, right? Got to pay her at least 20 cents, right? So what would you be on? So if y'all put it, y'all going to put it in a bid, right? So you can do it in your head, obviously. So how much would Donnie offer Vicky?
I said $1.
$1, right? And if that was your only choice, Vicky, would you take $1?
I would.
Probably, yeah. I mean, better than 20 cents, right?
Hopefully somebody will offer $1.
That's right.
$1.90.
Exactly. Anyone more than $1? I mean, if you knew the dollar, then you may bid more than $1, right? Going once, going twice, right?
Just depends. Am I the only sweatshop in town? Or do I have to compete with all these other sweatshops?
Yeah, you're competing for Vicky because she's a worker bringing in $2, and you compete. All the other folks, everyone's a different employer, right? And how much do we want to offer? Well, if someone's offering $1, does anyone want to offer more than that?
Excuse me, why would you offer much more than 20 cents?
That's a good question, but because what if you only offer 20 cents, but then someone else offered 25?
I'm saying just not much more than that.
Yeah, so
Like
So like 25 cents?
25 cents, yeah.
So,
It's a percentage big change, right?
Yeah,
yeah,
percentage-wise,
and a 25% raise.
That's the reason I ran for the dollar.
yeah.
That's pretty good money. Offer
But-
enough that you can be selective and get the cream of the crop when it comes to workers, but
25
not,
cents seems to do.
But if you offer 25 cents and another person offers 30 cents, and then 35.
And then agree to hire
Wage.
family and extended.
It's like an auction kind of thing, right? It's kind of, but that's what I think will happen though if you all are competing. Now, if you're colluding, that's a different story. But if you are competing, you are competitors. You offer 25, someone might offer a little more than that, and so forth, right? And you go around and you get bidded up, right? If you want to, different ways of doing the auction, but it won't go to above $2. But just like any sort of auction, the price will get bid up, right? Up to near $2 maybe. So you could do that with your students. You can probably set it however you want, but you can do the silent auctions, right? The second, whatever, however you want to do it. But what you'll find is that it'll start getting bid up, right? Now, if you're bringing in, $10, then the wage probably get bid up to close to 10, right?
Closer, maybe not close, but closer.
Closer, right? I don't know. Of course, in real life, you could take some profit, cover other costs and that sort of thing. But ignoring all that, right? Not going to be beyond 10. But, it'll bid up. So if you, just like with, how come we don't offer, suppose if LeBron James wasn't playing basketball, suppose that he could mow lawn for $10 an hour. Say a yearly wage of $20,000, right? So knowing that LeBron James is, he could bring in $30 million. Oh, but if he didn't have a job, he's only making $20,000. I'm sure he could do better than that, but just suppose. Would you offer $21,000? No. Someone offer $5 million, $10 million, $20 million. It'll get bid up to somewhere closer to $30 million.
Good thing he was a free agent.
That's the thing. Yeah, free agent. But if he got injured first, and then
Don't worry, he also makes $55 million a year from endorsements.
Yeah, that's true.
I know you guys were worried. Like, how does he live?
Yeah, he's gonna be all right, I think. He can spend his money very poorly and be all right.
NBA rules with their max contracts of only for $20 million a year. These poor guys really can do.
Yeah.
Well, actually, LeBron has given away a ton of his money.
I know. He just built like a school.
Yeah, I mean, he has given away a lot of his money.
Yeah. But the thing about LeBron or
I would've given away
about NBA is that NBA there's only a few teams, right? I mean, 30. I don't know how many teams. 30, something like that. And you think that they may be able to collude a little bit, right? But they can't even collude, right? They get bid up. I just want to stop there, I guess, because we have lunch. Y'all don't miss lunch. So I appreciate it. And then after lunch, we'll go with Dr. Kalulu. He'll explain the whole world.